there's just
Sorry, I just started recording.
sure. Um, the crazy thing with Jasmy is, you know, there's the language barrier, right? Then you got like this wild card that's all these guys from Sony. Um, you got this project that started in 2016, but really didn't do anything until, let's say, 5 years later, right? And then they've got like different articles in different countries across Asia and elsewhere, and it's it's really hard to keep up with if you're new to it. It really is.
100%. That's why I didn't understand when I started deep diving into it how some people were saying that the company doesn't do anything, or things of that nature that are going around, and I'm just like, what are you guys talking about? They're in so many different areas and they continue to expand. And I'm just surprised, but that's what you get with a lack of research, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is that, but I think what's kind of bubbling up to the surface, at least recently, is from the investor side, right? Like the investors are saying, "Hey, you need to sell me on why this is a good investment," right? I mean, but the funny thing is, I mean, if you're on TradingView and you look at all the cryptocurrencies, they all pretty much are trading, in line, right? Like the whole market's down at once, the whole market's up at once. Very rarely do you have one that starts deviating. And in the last bull market, Cardano did that a lot. Like it deviated from Bitcoin, right? And I think a lot of us in Jasmy are hoping that Jasmy could do the same thing. But if you follow these cryptocurrencies long enough, you see that the timeline for getting all of the technology live doesn't happen overnight. It really doesn't, and it takes months and months. It takes multiple years, and then eventually, things start going live one by one, and then it's like, all right, now what are we working with, right? Like, where do we go from here? And with Jasmy, I think the other part that is kind of weird with this one is that so you got the old guard of guys from Sony, and they're like device makers, right? Like that's what they do. That's their bread and butter. They've always made devices. Then you have this idea that uses blockchain technology that then pulls into cryptocurrency, right? And this whole cryptocurrency thing on X, Twitter, right? And this whole community of stuff that's kind of like way beyond those guys, right? Um, and so at the team level, you got kind of all the older guys on one side, and then you got the newer crowd, the younger crowd on the other side. And I think that's where you have this disconnect because from the older guys, from the Sato, from the Ando, that's all the stuff I think that reels in most of us, right? Like that's all the real stuff, the real use cases, the real partnerships. And then on the newer side, you've got Hara, you've got this Jasmy Labs thing, you have this Jasmy Chain thing. How does it all make sense? How does it all come together? And it's really complicated if you don't follow this stuff every day, you know?
It'd definitely be confusing for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, Firstly, I just wanted to thank you on behalf of me and my followers for taking the time for us today to answer some questions and talk about Jasmine and stuff. Because, like we had discussed there, that a lot of both of our followers are kind of like we just discussed, kind of up in the air, and they don't really know what's going on with all these different things, right? So
Yeah.
definitely appreciate you taking the time for us today, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
Um, so you were talking about actually, the first thing I wanted to cover was I have a lot of questions from my followers that I'll get into, but I just had a couple things. I noticed you were talking about this that you never had a chance to talk about stable coins on Jasmy Chain. What do you, I know you never got a chance to ask about it with Hara, but what are your thoughts on it?
So in every major chain, there are stable coins, right? And there's different reasons. Basically, a stable coin is out there to quickly, easily, more efficiently transact money back and forth. Okay. So every major blockchain has stable coins. What's unique is the laws in Japan. Okay. So Japan has recently said, uh, with their stablecoin law that essentially financial institutions can issue their own stablecoin. And I think I saw the other day somebody was saying that the amount of money was somewhere around $700,000 that you would need. It would need to be backed 1-to-1 with actual fiat. So there's real money behind this thing. If you're issuing coins, you can't do like a Tether, where Tether is notorious for constantly every Bitcoin run, right? It's like Tether issues another, however many more million tethers. And everybody always asks, like, okay, but where's the money behind it? Like, let's see behind the curtain. And Tether's like, yeah, but you know, so they're kind of the example of what you don't want to be, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think, funny, I was just watching a thing on SBF about the collapse of FTX, right? People want to know that the stable coin is actually backed 1-to-1. And so in Japan, it has to be. Okay. And so what's unique is that whole financial institution being able to issue their own coins, and then transact them back and forth, right? Again, all we're talking about is transacting money. But
Mm-hmm.
but where it gets kind of funny is these are like derivatives, right? And if you think back to like 2008 with like the mortgage crisis, it was like a derivative wrapped into a derivative mixed with another derivative plus a derivative divided by a derivative, and then you got something. And at the end of the day, it was like, what do we got? And no one knew, and so so anyway, so in Japan, it has to be verified and it has to be approved. Okay. And so Hara has started this company, his own company, Jasmy Labs.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talked about being able to issue stable coins from Jasmy Labs, right? And so on the actual Jasmy platform, they've talked about DD points, which is just another term for DD coin, which is their stable coin. Okay. So this DD points is the version basically for Jasmy that should be out there. And so the question is it issued by Jasmy Labs, DD coin / DD points, that is then applied on the Jasmy chain, or would there be additional stable coins potentially on this chain, or is he referring to simply making stable coins outside of Jasmy, right? Just by Jasmy Labs, the company, but somebody else could use it entirely. Maybe he uses it with like a star or something like that. So that's kind of why I was wondering. There's a bunch of different ways you can go with that question. But when we did that call, if you saw my recent video on it, I went to bed at 9. I woke up at 12:30, 1 o'clock, something like that. I did the call in the middle of the night, halfway groggy, asked a few terrible questions, wrote about it, and then went back to bed for 3 hours and woke up at 6.
I did catch your video, by the way. Yeah.
So anyway, that was kind of it, though.
Okay, so what was your thoughts on? I don't know if you've heard about that the video that was made. It's been debunked now. I did a video debunking it as well on the Jasmy coin not being affiliated with the Jasmy company. I mean, we know obviously that it is, but did you catch that rumor that was flying around?
I think I heard about the video, and at one point I tried to click on it and I couldn't get to it. It was like it was removed or something.
Yeah, took it down and apologized, but
yeah. So again, I think this is where it gets confusing, right? So you've got Jasmy, what is it? Jasmy Core Limited, Corporation Limited, whatever the official name is, right? Then you have Hara's company that is Jasmy Labs. The main company is where this Jasmy coin that's on Ethereum, the ERC20 token, has always been. Okay. What's different is that Hara is saying Jasmy Labs has created Jasmy Chain. Okay. And Jasmy Chain, in Hara's own words, is more monetized, right? So it's cheaper, it's more efficient. But the coin is on Ethereum, okay? So there's no utility on Ethereum. So in order to have the utility, you need to migrate. You need to cross a bridge, and you need to have it over here at some point in time if you're going to use it for utility.
Right.
Now, you could always just buy it and hold it and keep it there, and it should trade in line with whatever the project's doing. But the main point is that, and this is where Transcosmos comes in, is that originally, going back in time, they had a partnership with a company called Centrality. Okay, so I do the analogy like this. So if Ethereum is a car, Centrality is like adding a cold air intake that now gives it a little bit extra performance, right? That's what the original idea was. The problem was it still wasn't efficient enough for what Transcosmos's needs are. All right, with secure PC, etc. So that's why they had to create Jasmy Chain to meet the needs of the transactions per second and to make it cheap. That's the 2 points, right? So Ethereum, this is like the Achilles heel of Ethereum, is that it's slow and it's expensive. And so that's why Vitalik is always talking about it like, hey, we need to work on it. He's posted that he thinks Ethereum 2.0 could do 800,000 transactions per second, which is insanely high. I mean, that's like off the charts, right? But again, like going back to the car analogy, it's kind of like you're taking an old car and you're doing like an engine swap, and now you're calling it a new car, but it's still kind of that old car. So it's really hard. It's like he would be better off, I think, just creating a brand new thing and calling it, Ethereum Future, and just starting from there, and it'd probably be a million times better. But the problem is that all the infrastructure is on the current version of Ethereum, right? That's kind of where his problem is. So it's like he needs a new car, but somehow he needs to bring all the old business with him over. And if he could do that, then it'd be insanely fast. And then it would kind of change things again, because everybody would have to pivot to, well, do we keep our own chain with our own transactions per second, or do we go back to Ethereum because now it's better, right?
I was
Things change,
I like with that because like I said, I spent about 2 days. It felt like it was getting kind of tiring because all of the, like, you had these people saying, there's no need for a layer two and stuff like that, right? And I'm just the way that you kind of put it, just kind of perfect, because I'm sitting there trying to tell them, like, look, you're not a developer on the team. You're not a developer at all. You're just an influencer, kind of like myself. And if the team tells me that they need a layer two for the reasons that you had stated, right, and I would go through those reasons, like, I kind of tend to think that they need a layer two, right? But there's that other stigma going around that, because, like, it's being compared to Gala migration and things like that, right, into a V2. There's like, well, there's no need for this, and it's just a money grab and stuff. And I'm just like, you don't really know much about migrations and the need for a V2 and stuff like that. Then if you think that the team's just doing it for the sake of doing it so they can make some more money, kind of thing, right?
Right. Yeah, they're not doing it for the money. That's one of the things I've talked about that a few times. Ando in particular, right? Ando is 80 years old. He's 80. I mean, he could just be playing golf in Hawaii every day and not deal with any of this, right? Sato is the same thing. I mean, he's retired out of Sony. I mean, I imagine those guys probably got a pretty fat pension.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like, why are most of them doing it for the older guys, right? Why be involved with this at all? And I think it's because of the idea it represents, right? There's like an idealism angle to this whole thing that we've talked about a little bit, where Ando and all these guys, if they really wanted to do this project and do it a hell of a lot easier, they would have done it somewhere else than Japan, right? Because none of the Japanese laws were favorable. But they did it there, and they stuck it out, right? And they started in 2016. It's now 2023, and we're still not there yet, right? Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like it just keeps going. But you ask yourself, it's like, why would you put yourself through that? I mean, why? And if you go back to like some of the interviews with Ando, he talked about how Japan didn't have a tier one tech company on par with like the Google, Apple, Facebook. You know, they just don't have that, and he doesn't even consider Sony to be that, which is interesting because at one point in time, Steve Jobs was like the biggest fan of Sony. So it's interesting that Apple has gone far beyond, at least in his eyes. Now, I mean, I think you could still argue that Sony is a pretty big player
Yeah,
in terms of their umbrella, right? I mean, that's a massive, massive company, but I get the impression that there's a nationalist angle with Japan that he just wants to bring something back to Japan that really kind of sets it like lights the 20, 30 years, right? I think that's what the angle that Ando's going for. And so, like, who's running the company? It's probably Sato is probably the main guy running it. Ando's mostly on all these different boards all over the place. And then I think Hara kind of fills this weird gap of like new age, young people, cryptocurrency, X platform. They kind of like just throw him on there. Even
but
though when you look at his background, you go, why is this the guy for this? You know?
you do need that though, right? To bring
Yeah,
in, right? Sure.
you do. You do. And I've said before that every platform needs like a blockchain expert, like the blockchain guy, right? Like who is that? Like Ethereum, you go, it's Vitalik, you know. Binance, you're like, up CZ, you know, Cardano, Charles Hoskinson. There's always like a main person you can kind of point to, even with a star. And with Jasmy, everybody kind of goes to Hara, but he's really not the blockchain expert at all.
Yeah.
So it's
He,
kind of weird, you know?
he seems like he's just the kind of social media easiest to access, right? And so they go after him.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
So do you think that there will ultimately be a V2 coin? Because that's the big
Um,
on everybody's mind. I'm sure you get it a
yeah.
lot.
So so if you think about it as two different chains and the supplies on one, if you want to use it for any utility, it's got to go to the other.
Yeah.
That's how it would work. They would not issue like a new supply on chain two and then go, hey, everybody with chain one, sorry, tough luck. You know, I mean, like I said in one of my videos, that would be like nuking your own project, right? If you said, hey, all the global investors out there, everybody that put us to this $200 million market cap, oh well, you know. I
We
mean,
tried.
yeah, goodbye, right? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. And likewise, I mean, I've seen this thing come up again and again and again ever since I apparently got the genie out of the bottle on this thing, and not really intending to. I did not intend to like cause this big uh, chaotic moment, but when I explained it in the last video, it's you're in your car, you drive to the bridge, you then drive over the bridge, you're in the car on the other side of the bridge. There's not two cars now. You don't have the car before and the car after. We didn't like split in two and now there's two cars. There's just one car that moves back and forth. I mean that's how it works with any migration, any bridge in crypto. I mean, this is how it goes. And I have said that I've been like blue in the face and I still get constant comments like, Jesse, please explain this to me.
That was the best way of putting it I've ever heard. 100%, man. 100%.
Yeah.
Because I believe honestly, like going back to what you were talking about it taking a few years still. I believe that IoT is like still a couple of years away from being the center stage.
Sure. Yeah.
And I believe that Jasmine, a lot of the stuff that they're doing is kind of ahead of the curve in a lot of stuff, like their Aveda laptops, for example. Right.
Yeah. It's the first one, the very first blockchain PC around the entire planet.
Yeah.
So that's way ahead of the curve. Yeah.
I think that it's only a matter of time within the next 10 years that we'll see, smartphones and tablets and desktops and And I was reading that they're trying to move down into South Asia right now with their laptops,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and apparently they're in talks or something with in the West with the United States. Is that something you've heard too?
Yeah. Yeah. So the laptop is through partnership with Avita. Avita is based in India. Apparently Ando is the chairman of the Avita board. All right. So this is like those overlaps in the background. There's always multiple overlaps. Um, so that's India in particular. And so where they expand out from there, Hara has said Hong Kong has been a huge focus. Korea is a pretty big focus. Even like Bangladesh, Thailand, Malaysia,
Mm-hmm.
uh, all of their KPI numbers they could easily hit in Asia alone. They don't even need to go anywhere else. But I think it was maybe last year or maybe a little bit sooner. They had announced that a guy named Kentaro Miura, who is in Silicon Valley, is their point person to try and build some stuff down in Silicon Valley for them, right? Whether it's getting the laptop out there in the US, whether it's secure PC English. Um, the interesting thing with him is originally they updated that he was kind of involved with like the NFT space. And they've talked about using the PDL with NFTs in terms of like an access thing or a tracking type of deal. But we haven't really heard a lot since.
Right.
Now, funny thing is, it was probably let's say 3 to 6 months ago, something like that. There was a story about part of the Jasmy team supposedly went to the U.S. to have some sort of meetings, and we really haven't heard anything on that since.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. No idea yet. But I'd love to ask that question too. Like, did anything come of this? Is there something in the works? Is there nothing in the works? Just kind of, give us a heads up. Because again, I mean, yeah, the US would be great, but the US isn't even necessary. Really, Asia is what matters here
Yeah.
for them. So,
I was also looking at like I was getting a lot of flack, so to speak, on behalf of the you guys, the ambassadors of Jasmy, and I was trying to explain to the best of my ability that because a lot of people were complaining about the last AMA there, right? The last
yeah.
um, and they were saying, well, we were asking questions, but everyone kept saying the same thing or something like that, right? And from my understanding, I don't know how it works. So maybe you could explain how it works in terms of how information is kind of allocated to you guys. I assume that it's done over time, like because some listeners seem like they were saying they want all the answers all at once, kind of boom, give it to me all, right? And
Yeah.
I'm assuming that only certain information is released as it's ready to be released to you guys. Is that how does that operate?
So, okay. So, first of all, Jasmy Corp Limited is a private company. It's not bound by any kind of public disclosure whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So when they have a partnership with a business partner, um, they really can't tell us who it is unless that business partner is okay with that, right? Um, so that's part of that whole thing. Now, in terms of the ambassador program, um, it's kind of a question mark. Let me put it that way. Okay, so let me go back a little bit. So the ambassador program was announced by Hara, et cetera, saying that they wanted some ambassadors. Um, they asked everybody to apply. I did not apply. Okay,
Really?
I purposefully did not apply. No, I did not. And I thought, it's probably better somebody else can ask these questions. I make videos. I'm plenty critical in my videos as well, right? I'm not just like rah 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 go team. I kind of view it like I always talk about with like politicians, right? If you're Republican or you're Democrat, you're either all in or you're nothing, right? I view it more like a football team where I'm like, hey, I live in Jacksonville. I'm a fan of the Jaguars, but I can admit when like our defense is terrible or, our receiver dropped the ball, right? I can admit that we're not perfect, right? We are not the best team. We're trying. We're trying. But there's always, opportunities for improvement. So anyway, so going back to the ambassador program. So I did not apply, but they reached out to me and asked me if I'd like to do it. And I said, all
Whoa.
right, I guess this is sort of like fate telling me, Jesse, you should step up and do this, because I had a lot of other people that were like, yeah, we were kind of hoping you'd be doing it, and I was like, I don't know. Um, and so that's kind of how that happened, right? Now, in the time since, everything kind of went quiet, right? And everybody's going, hey, where are the ambassadors at? We haven't heard anything, right? What's the conversation? Well, the truth is there really hasn't been a conversation. There hasn't been one. All right. I think from an ambassador standpoint, what I envisioned, at least in my head, and maybe this is completely different because I'm American, I'm US, I'm English thinking. They're Japan, right? Totally different world. Is I viewed this as like a private conversation that we have amongst the group, and they tell us, hey, we're working on this, or we got that coming, or whatever. And then we disseminate it however it's supposed to go through the various channels through all of us that are part of this group, right? That's kind of how I saw it. It hasn't been that way. All right. So what it has been is, hey, we want to get a call together with all the ambassadors in the middle of the night. It's like, what? Like, okay. so so then I call into the call, and it's like, oh yeah, and you can ask Hara a question. I'm like, well, this kind of sucks because I'd like to ask Hara about 15 or 20 questions as opposed to like one, you know?
Question. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, bless her heart, Moonlight. Moonlight. I just, it just doesn't resonate, and they do all these calls with like these partnerships for Jasmine Chain. And I've kind of critiqued that a little bit, where I'm like, we're getting the cart of the head of the horse a little bit. Like, nobody really knows what these partnerships mean until the actual chain is like live. Like, it's got to be live, and then we can see all the development on it,
Yeah.
But they keep doing these calls, and so what I would like to do personally, what I would like, now that doesn't mean this is going to happen, but what I would like to do is I would like to, in the past, I did a bit of an AMA with Hara where I sent him a list. And, in the past, people used to give Hara all this crap because it was like, oh, is he real? Is he not real? Is he just a figment of everyone's imagination? And then he comes out and it's like, yes, he's a real guy. And then it's like, okay, well, now we want him on audio. Now we want him on video. And if you listen to the call, it's challenging. All right. It's really challenging. And I saw a post recently by one of the Japanese speakers where they're showing the difference between English and Japanese. And it's kind of like the first word's the same. And then all the rest of the words you read from the back going forward. So if he's trying to do that with us, it's like, no wonder he can't really get it. And we don't really understand. And even, his other guy, Akira, that, reminds me of like Odd Job from James Bond, because he's got that cool hat. Right. he doesn't speak English either. And so between the two of them, it's like somehow we gotta like give them the information, let them translate it. If you ever notice, Hara likes to write ahead his response. He likes to be prepared and give you, a whole sheet, a paragraph that's written out because he thinks it's right. He's had time to check it. Right. That's what I would like to do. I would like to give him a list of here's like the top 10, the top 20 financial questions related to investors, right? With the number one question that I would like to ask him is, sell the investors on why Jasmine is a good investment.
Yeah.
That's like number one. It's like, if you could nail that, then I think a lot of people would be like, okay, that's what I've been looking for, right? But I think like right now, when there isn't a story, when there isn't like what's the word I'm like a dialect going in this 24-hour news cycle, then you have a void. And when there's a void, people just start talking, right? Things just come out, right? Like a couple weeks back, there was an article that was written very well that quoted Jasmy US, and it kind of took the quote a bit out of context. But I can see how it could happen, right? And you know, the thing too is Jasmy US is just another ambassador like me.
Yep.
None of us work for Jasmy. I've never been paid a cent from them. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. I
Yep.
only did all these videos because everybody keeps asking me to do videos on it. And I was like, all right, I'll do another video, you know?
It snowballed on my channel that way too. Like I originally was covering XRP a lot and stuff, and I just
Yeah.
kept Jasmy requests, and then but the Jasmy videos kept doing far better than everything else, and it just became more and more Jasmy. And you know, as an investor in it myself, it's like, well, I don't mind because it also helps me keep up to date on everything too, right? So
Yeah. Yeah. And there's always something to talk about.
yeah, yeah, there's something made up or like who knows. Uh, that's a, yeah, God, the last I don't know if you watched any of my videos, but over the last week, I think I had to do like 2 or 3 days in a row of just putting out fires. I'd wake up in the morning and I'd have like 50 messages from subs saying, you know, oh, this YouTuber made a video saying, you know, this about Jasmy and he sold all his Jasmy and that about Jazz. And I'm just like, so then I had to go watch the video and kind of debunk everything that they were saying that was kind of pulled out of, you know, the ether, you know, on
Yeah.
a and so it got crazy for a couple of days there. But
Yeah.
my
There's never a shortage of noise.
yeah,
And that's true. And one thing I would say also is that, you know, I started my channel somewhere around the fall of 2020, I think. And when I first started it, I was doing a lot of like price prediction videos and things like that. And I would review any coin that you gave me. Give me a coin, I'll review it, right? Um, the funny thing is certain communities embrace you, and then others tell you you're completely full of it and we hate your guts, right? And I remember I did this was really funny. I did a prediction on V Chain, VET, right? And at the time it was really popular. And I gave a prediction on it that turned out being spot on. It was like dead on the money, right? And I got so much hate from that video that they were just like, you don't know anything. You're completely wrong. You go back to, what other videos you normally do. And
before the result, you got that?
oh yeah. Oh yeah. And it kind of taught me early on that you really got to have like a thick skin if you're going to do these kind of videos. Cause at first I kind of took offense to it and I was like, no, I know I took the time. I spent all day on this thing. I researched it. I know what I'm talking about. And yeah, I kind of got mad about it. And then after a while, you get through enough of these that after a while, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I pretty much accepted at this point for every 100 likes, I get a dislike. I mean, that's kind of how it goes,
It feels like,
I
it's
mean, it's the same thing on Twitter too.
yeah, it feels like for every video I do, there's like this one guy who just goes and clicks dislike on everything, right?
Yeah, yeah. And when I first started, I would talk to my wife about it and I said, I've been on YouTube for years, right? Years. And I said, never once have I gone on YouTube and downvoted a video. I've never done that. I
Yeah,
simply, if I'm watching it, I'm like, nah, then I just turn it off. That's it. So it's like to actually go no and then downvote it. It's like you're kind of like taking it to another level.
that's personal then. Yeah.
Yeah,
Jeez. So I think the video is going to shut us off in about 4 minutes. I just want to hit a couple of other ones quickly here.
sure.
Uh, just sorry, just bear with me here. The utility of Jasmy coin, like some people were arguing that the coin, I keep getting that in the comments. Well, the coin doesn't have any actual utility, kind of thing, right? Like
Yeah,
what with the coin, and so what I'm getting at with that is I know that you're going to be able to earn Jasmy coins for example, providing your data and stuff like that, right? A lot
right.
of people are asking me, how do I do that? How do
That's
I?
where the super wallet comes in.
Mhm.
So the super wallet would be your interface, right? That's your way to get access to it. So um, all the main blockchains have a wallet, if not multiple wallets. Jasmy doesn't have one, right? Well, now Jasmy has Jasmy Chain, That means they have to have a wallet. And so the super wallet would be that thing that when you migrate, let's say if you migrate your coins or however many you want to migrate, whatever, you migrate them over to the super wallet and now they're in the platform, they're in the ecosystem. So like you said, you could potentially earn on them. You could help secure the network. You could do different things. You know, all of the blockchain projects are fairly similar in uh, putting the coins on there. You can get returns through like something like staking. You can vote on, you know, like governance proposals. What's different with this is kind of putting forth your own data, so there could be a different angle there. I don't know. And you know what this super wallet looks like? No idea. Haven't seen it yet, but I've been predicting it for a long time. It's kind of like when somebody says, "I know there's another planet out there because of all these gravitational issues, but we haven't found it." That's kind of how I feel about the super wallet. It's like it's got to be there. It just has to come out, you know.
So just one more reason that Jasmy chain is needed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is no super wallet with Ethereum for Jasmy. So,
Mhm. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm gonna try to wrap it up there because I don't want us to get cut off. Is it okay with you if I put your channel link down in the description for the video there when I
yeah.
all right, guys. So yeah, I'll tell the guys, the subscribers there, guys, make sure you check out KIR Finance. Awesome guy. I hope we can do this again soon, my friend. Again, on behalf of me and all my subscribers, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this and try to help me put out some fires with this whole Jasmy, the flood fires, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're always going to need another bucket for that, right? But no,
Exactly.
I appreciate it, and I would say, you know, I'm willing to collaborate anytime. That's one of the things I learned early on with doing this is that, you know, you start in your house, in your room by yourself, making the videos on your own. Everything's kind of you. It becomes a lot more fun once you bring in other people and you start a group conversation. So yeah, anytime you want to chat, I'd be open to it. So
Awesome. I really appreciate that, man. Same thing goes for you. If I can ever help you out or collab with you, definitely I'm definitely interested in doing that, man.
absolutely.
So, thank you so much. And I will fire you off another email soon and I'll tag you in the video and stuff and I'll put your link down below in the description.
All right. Thanks again, Rob. Appreciate it.
No worries, my friend. Take care.
All righty. See ya.